welcome to a major edition of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets. Skylar, Hoke here, joined as always with Tom Jacobs. How we doing, my friend?
Good. Yeah, it's been a shame that we've been off with the DP World Tour for a couple of weeks, but back next week, right? So plenty to look forward to, and let's look at some select DP World Tour players of what we've got left, I guess, for the PGA Championship this week.
Yeah, I'm impressed at the field, right? PGA Championship now gets to offer the strongest field basically in the world, right? Being able to offer pretty much more invitations than any other major kind of doles out. Liv got a bunch. We're mainly going to focus on our DP World Tour guys who got the exemptions through some of the swings. We also have guys that have graduated from the DP World Tour that I think makes sense down the salary boards. This is mainly going to be DFS focused overall. With a mix if there's any prop bets or different selections or markets we want to take a peek at before finalizing tomorrow. So this really drops us, I guess, arguably into the 7Ks at the earliest, probably for a lot of them. I think it makes sense, though, before we even dive in any of them, if we want to talk a little Valhalla course fit, is there anything that you feel stands out this week specifically?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talk. There's obviously a lot of talk about it being driver heavy. And there was this kind of thing of well, if it gets firm and fast, that should bring some of the shorter hitters back into it. And of course, looking at the 2014 leaderboard, that was the case, right? You've got players that got it done through accuracy. And I think you'll always get that. I think when we start talking about the players, though, that we're going to be talking about today, I think you've got to focus on this kind of course fit of a long hitter who can get streaky with the putter, because I don't think you want to be taking the shorter guys in the low range. I think that's a slight recipe for disaster. There's obviously going to be exceptions, and maybe we'll name a couple, right? But I think for me, it's definitely looking at the players that are already built for that kind of perfect profile. And I think it's literally, you need that blend of accuracy as well as the distance. But I just think I'm focusing pretty heavy on the driving distance, and that has been the case for most majors, right?
Yeah, I'm trying not to outsmart myself, and I really think that remains the most true when you get down the salary board. If not, you can probably make a case for a lot of the guys. When it's the elites, there's an argument I think I can make for a Cameron Smith or a Colin Morikawa, because they've showed elite skill sets at any track, right? Those guys don't exist in the 6Ks, and if you're really trying to pick a lane, that's probably how you have to approach it. And to me, yes, it's a PGA Championship test. It is going to be the brute force, the strength, whoever can power it the most. Boots on the ground reports are saying, I gave a shout out yesterday to Matt Gannon and DG Betting, who are there all week long. And they talked about how the rough doesn't seem to be as penal as a typical PGA Championship, that the greens are holding really easily, that basically it could be a long iron putting test. And that could bring a lot of guys into play. But I still prefer down the board to lean into what we're comfortable with the PGA Championship, and then maybe get more cute with better golfers, for example.
I think the point about the rough is interesting. I don't think the rough is ever as penal as we think it's going to be. We always just hear, this is going to be brutal rough, and they were talking about, there's going to be a lot more focus on short game this week because the rough is terrible around the fairways and the greens, and then it will come to it, and it won't really hinder them too much. I think you're spot on with the assessment you made with the two players. I think if you're talking about those kind of anti-course fits, if you like, in the sense of Morikawa, I think is probably the one. The one concern with someone I'm already focusing on, one's concern with someone like a Smith is he's not long or straight. I think with Morikawa, at least you're getting the accuracy side of things right now. That's going to make someone like a Smith a decent pivot play in that sense. When I think about people that are sort of handicapped by distance, I really want them to be deadly accurate. And obviously that's quite difficult to keep in mind. I think if you know, Sky, that someone's brilliant from 200 yards plus with their irons, even if they're a shorter hitter, that's completely different. But I think you get that kind of perspective better on the PGA Tour with the sites that are out there and the PGA Tour itself, right? Whereas the DP World Tour, you don't really get that kind of deep dive, and you can make your best guess from the eye test of who we watch. Someone like a Sebastian Soderberg is not the longest, but we know that, for example, he must be hitting his mid to long iron as well because of the way he's playing all season. But that is going to be important. You're going to have to make up for it in one way or another. I wouldn't want to trust a guy that completely did it through short game, which I know last season in 2014 there was a guy that did it, but you don't want to be relying on that.
Right. Absolutely in lockstep. So first conversation, mid 7Ks. I think there's two, basically 7,500 or above, maybe a little bit below there. Minwoo Lee and Nikolai Højgaard.
Yeah.
You take Minwoo Lee. What are your thoughts?
I think he's not going to be accurate enough. I think like he's got that skill set that people want in terms of big driver. He's showing up in the big events multiple times now. I think he's going to get caught out here, and I think that potentially the bubble hasn't burst, right? Like he's been solid, but he's like 22nd, 24th. Like I think there's a relative ceiling now. If he finishes 22nd like he did at the Masters, that's a great performance, I think, for or decent performance, right? 7,700. But like when there's other options around there from the PGA Tour, I think you probably go with them.
I think I'm a fan of Minwoo. I don't know. Like that's the thing. Is a Minwoo versus a Siwoo is a really different conversation, right? I would say he's my favorite of the litter around there, but I think that style. I mean, right? You look at outside the Open Championship, right? He's T22 at the Masters, T5, T18 in the last three majors that you look at. Led the field off the tee at the Byron Nelson. Still recovering from that broken finger in some senses, right? I'm intrigued Minwoo. I think I'm very intrigued by Nikolai Højgaard in daily fantasy. $7,400, sat inside the top 10 for the first 3 rounds of the Masters. So if we really hone into that skill set of 175 to like 250 on approach, he stands out on the PGA Tour. If you just kind of do a combo of like 150 to 250, Data Golf does a really good job of being able to work through those dispersions. And he's like a top 10 player on the PGA Tour in that approach range. Basically is off the map after missing the cut, which makes sense at Corrales post-major. And then him and Rasmus played together at the Zurich and did not fare well. But showed out at Torrey. I think Nikolai could make some sneaky sense here.
I think just going back to Minwoo Lee very quickly, maybe I'm being harsh. Like 4 of the last 5 events, he's actually gained in accuracy as well, and that includes obviously the Masters, where he's one of the second best performance in accuracy. He was good at the Players as well from an accuracy standpoint off the tee. So actually, if anything, Minwoo Lee would be that one of the two. Nikolai is just so volatile, and that's going to work in your favour in certain ways. Like I guess, like if you're talking sort of cash games versus GPPs and things like that, where you can take a bit more of a risk, then I would completely understand Nikolai. The ceiling is very high. He's just been he's not adjusted to the PGA Tour in the way that I thought he would. Like he's not playing the smaller events well, right? So it's whether he is struggling motivation and just making the best of the bigger fields like he listed there, obviously with Torrey Pines and the Masters, or whether he is just generally struggling with the adjustment and will soon, learn that. He has obviously got experience in playing this major. He's played it the last couple of years. He was 50th last year, I think he was. And he shot second round 67. He missed the cut in the first year. So, look, he's got experience stateside. I think he's very live to make the cut. It just depends how far his game lets him take at the moment.
And he's not, relatively more expensive compared to the rest of the guys that we'll talk about. I don't even really think anybody else in the 7Ks would fit that category. Like I said, we went through live golfers, it's not kind of what we've been following all year long. I think there's some that make sense. Dean Burmeister at 7K, a really nice course fit. But for us, the next conversation really comes to Ryan Fox. I don't know if I want to give Dietrich the benefit of the doubt of being a little bit more of a DP World Tour graduate, but a lot of our guys are actually in the 5Ks. So we can spend some time on Fox and Dietrich and even a Zayden Hoot, who could be somebody, and like a Rye. Any of those guys tickle your fancy?
I really like Fox. So he on his debut, he finished 54th in the PGA, but he was 11th after round 2 and 12th after round 3. Came back the following year, finished 27th. He did then miss a cut. But again, the last 2 years at the PGA Championship, he was 54th 2 years ago, but he was 17th going into the final round, shot 77. And then 23rd last year, where he was 6th after round 1 and 16th after round 3. So for the most part, in 4 of his 5 starts, he's been, inside the top 20 for a good period of time, or in and around the top 20. And I think that's really promising. especially when you consider how well he played last week. Now, a little bit like Nicolai, he's not really set the world light on the PGA Tour since moving over, but just signs of life. He played well in the Zurich Classic there. He started nicely at the Masters, didn't he? He was 6th after round 1, 8th after round 2. And I do think if he's going to, suit a major championship, people will obviously point to the Open, but this is the sort of the kind of rotation where his driving is going to help him. So I do think Ryan Fox at 6,400 is a really live option. I think he's, live for a top 20, top 30 finish, and that's great value at the price.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought through Fox as much as some of the others that I had, and I think you're right. I mean, I didn't necessarily say that TPC or wherever they played the Dunes last week was what I would have considered a course fit for even like a Goddard or a Fox.
Yeah.
And both played extremely well in that manner. Good PGA Championship call-outs there. I think we're probably in lockstep of not really intrigued by a Dietrich or a Bezuidenhout, or Rye hits his long irons really well.
I would actually go Bezuidenhout over Rye.
Okay.
And the reason for that is I just think he's the guy that keeps bogey off the card the best out of that group. Like, if you look at the bogey avoidance stats, he's pretty high up in it. And I've just done a full, 360 on Bezuidenhout over the last, 6 months or so. Like, 16th at Wells Fargo, wouldn't necessarily think he'd play well there. When he goes back and plays on the DPWT Tour, he finishes 3rd in Japan. That's what you expect from him now at this level. 28th at the Heritage, where he shoots a fun around 65. 25th at Texas, where he obviously hit quite a number of drivers there as well. And I actually saw a tweet from Mike Carroll, Fit for Golf he's called, on Twitter, and he's been working with him to get his ball speed up. I think that potentially means that when he needs to use the driver too often, it could get a little bit out of control because he's working on something during a season. But he's certainly trending in the right direction in terms of the course fit. A little bit, I guess, like someone like Mackenzie Hughes is adding distance at this time of his career. And I think he could be quite intriguing for Bezuidenhout. I think he's someone that can hang in this level of field. Now, his PGA record is not good, but I think it was Kiowa, right? In 2021, he was 5th going into the final round and finished 30th. And then he's missed 3 cuts either side. So I think if he likes the course from day one, he'd be very interested to see how he goes for the next 3 rounds based on his improvement. So I would definitely pick him of that group of players we just mentioned. Rye, I do understand the call out on his long irons. I think that's true. Just never really seen anything from him that suggests to me that he's going to make an impact at this level. Now, that might be harsh given he was 19th in the Open Championship in 2021, but he's only played 4 majors, and 2 of them have been in the UK. So I'd be slightly concerned that it's not really ready for it yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's scary to say, but again, if I call out a live golfer in each range, I'm kind of getting some Phil Mickelson Spidey vibes this week. So I'm looking for a little prop action that I can get down on Phil. But into the 5Ks, who jumps out to you in the 5K range?
So I think if he'd have finished off on Sunday, like McIntyre was really pleasing last week, right? Like 5,900. We know he can play well in these major championships, notably the Open Championship and Augusta so far. But yeah, I was really encouraged by kind of what he had shown over the weekend. He obviously didn't perform on Sunday. This has been a disappointing major for him so far, and that suggests that we might be going the same way. But in terms of skill set, you think McIntyre with his driving is good. The one I would probably focus on is Matt Wallace. Like, Matt Wallace has been sneakily pretty consistent now, and I bet him last week at a number that I really didn't like, and I just felt like he was playing so well. He finished 20th, not great, but second round 64, final round 67. That followed a 4th at the Byron Nelson, where he was actually pleasingly 1st after round 1, 2nd after round 2, 3rd after round 3, 4th after round 4. But he finished 17th at the Valspar. He was 33rd in Mexico, where he was a 36-hole leader. He shot second round 64 at Phoenix, final round 67. So actually sneakily been pretty good this season, Matt Wallace. And we know that he's got the kind of record in here. He finished 19th in his PGA Championship debut, 3rd in his second start, where he was inside the top 10 all week and actually got better throughout the week. He hasn't made an impact over the last 3. He's been 77th, 55th, and 65th. But again, he's made the cut in 5 out of 5 PGA Championships. So if you're looking for a cheap option in that respect, I think Matt Wallace is a great option.
Awesome. Okay, it wasn't one that was really on my mind. What do you think of? I'm pretty into Soderberg, right? Like I think we preemptively had the conversation about it, and he honestly did exactly what I would have anticipated him doing by not winning that event, kind of giving it away in some senses, right? His last time out. And I mean, his approach hasn't been as good as of late. His putter and off the tee has been what's really leading him after a really straight run of approach. But 5,700, I feel like a top 30 for like Soderberg could pay off really well that far down the board. Like him and even like a Nakajima, like aren't the bomber types that I would trust in their form and skill set here that they can still get to a top level.
So the point about Soderberg is he's the best player on the DP World Tour right now. So if you're just simply looking for who's the guy that's going to show up in the DP World Tour, it's Soderberg. I mean, he's only played in one of the majors, and it's the US Open. He's played twice. He missed a cut a few years ago and finished 53rd in 2022, but he was actually in decent position, 71-70 after the first 2 rounds, and he shot 78 on Saturday to really fall away, and then final round 72 didn't do him any wonders. But like that was pretty good considering it's like only his second start. It's a US major. I worry slightly that the distance is not there. And as we mentioned sort of off the top here, that we want the course fit. But in terms of just someone that you can hang your hat on, the guy is the most consistent player on the DP World Tour for a long period of time now. And I'd find it very hard to put people off of him, that's for sure.
Yep, totally. I'm trying to think of others. I would say Jesper Svensson of a course type of fit, right? Like we've been very keen on him all year long. He showed up at the courses that required driver, almost chased down Burmeister to kick off the year, picks up that victory where he had the Sunday 63, quite amazing there. Of the DP World Tour fits, like he's like in that prime sweet spot. We've loved him this year. So far off the radar, course fit, like he is going to be 0.5% owned. Yeah. And it's almost like the Alejandro Del Rey type of play from LACC, where I could see Svensson like top 40 this and make some impact.
So he is my top 40 target of the DP World Tour players.
Okay,
I think he is like something ridiculous, like 6-1 or something, right? And the complete concern is we have no foundation, right? We have no idea how he's going to step up because we haven't seen him go to even a PGA Tour event or anything like that. Now, the one thing I would say is what you've already said is that in terms of course fit, he's the best. Of the people that we can really talk about, Jesper Svensson is the perfect course fit. And the only evidence we've got is he's gone from a Challenge Tour to the DP World Tour and flourished, right? Like he's taken a step up, and there's no reason to suggest that he couldn't do that again. There's also just no reason for it. So it's a very risky play, but I think it comes with that top, probably only top 40 upside, right? But that's absolutely fine at his price range. And then the other two guys, you've got Thurup and Olesen, who shot course record 61 on Sunday and has actually played this golf course. I think he finished 30th back in 2014. So you've got that in that respect, and you've got Jordan Smith, who has got a top 10 in the PGA Championship and not quite to the same level as Soderberg with the high finishes, but is still very consistent. If I was just looking for a flyer and trying to get different, and it would be Jesper Svensson. But yeah, Olesen, I mean, he's coming in off the back of a 61, and he's a good course fit based on the fact he finished 30th here 10 years ago.
Right. Others through the range, I'll name them off and you say yes or no.
Okay.
Rasmus Højgaard.
No.
Jordan Smith.
Yes.
Agreed. Tristan Lawrence.
No.
Brian Van Velzen.
No.
Alexander Bjork.
Possibly the worst course fit of anyone, but no.
Sami Välimäki.
I want to say yes, but nothing in his majors so far has suggested that we should be saying that. He's made one cut in a major so far in his career, but again, he's only played 3 of them, so potentially a bit harsh.
Yeah, I think Mexico required actually a lot of those long irons, similar to what we'll see this week. So I could see Valimaki kind of being.
I just see him. He's just his power specialist, right? Like he's just power greens, and that's where he's going to perform. So, but yeah, he can smash it.
Okay. Anybody that we've missed through this? I mean, like I on ETR, I go through this whole range, and there's about 10 golfers that I normally pick out. A few of them are DP World Tour golfers we've talked about. I've mentioned a few as we've gone here. If anyone wants some more deep diving, of course, you can kind of look into what we offer over there at Establish the Run. So happy to showcase that on major weeks. Really, really love this type of field for that. Tom, is there anybody else for you that you're intrigued by?
I think if someone was just looking for PGA Championship pedigree, like Fitzer Perez has got a 22nd and a 12th in 3 starts in the PGA. Probably not playing well enough, but he was 17th in Houston, 3rd at Puerto Rico, and he's made the last 3 cuts without really impressing. So I think Fitzer Perez, is a decent enough course fit. And then I don't know if we can quite cling on to Eric Van Rooyen anymore. I think he's very much a PGA Tour player, but he's playing good golf.
Yeah, I could see EVR kind of being one that can top in that range.
I guess the one we've got to talk, or the one, sorry to cut you off there, Sky. Like I think the one group of players that we probably should talk about, whether quick fire maybe for you, is Nakajima, Kanaya, and Hisatsune. Like, are any of those on your radar, the Japanese trio?
I think Nakajima could be one that makes it. I think Histatune is probably somebody that's a little too far off for me. I mean, I guess if I'm thinking, I don't know, Kanaya seems to be a little bit more reliant elsewhere. I guess he would be the one who's deadly accurate, but 0 distance, where I feel like Nakajima's game is a little bit more of a ceiling type.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my preference of the trio. I mean, is that a market that you could even maybe attack? I guess if you like somebody and you're okay fading like a Hideki injury, right?
Yeah, like I think you would go with Nakajima on the upside of talent, but again, like course fit, none of them really, right? So in terms of DFS, probably wouldn't play, but I think you're right. You could take on Matsuyama in that kind of range. I think it's also interesting. Like obviously you've got Ludwig to contend with, but like the top Swede market for someone like Svensson, where you can get some each. I don't know if you get each way over there on these kind of markets, but if you can, then that's a way to go with him as well. Because I do think I think he'd have Bjork beat Soderberg. We don't really know yet, and for all that we think Ludwig's going to go and contend, like the one thing I would say about him is he's shown all his best stuff really on shorter golf courses. So that's not to say Aberg's not going to win, but like.
The hard part with it is I like 3 of them, right? I like Soderberg, I like Whiting, and I like Svensson.
Yeah.
So it's like that's where I was different, because I thought that would be the perfect market to attack. And I don't know if there's a way to make money if I make a decision of the 3 and just maybe piggyback on 2. But yeah, I think that prop market I'm going to start diving into as they release more today and tonight and really find a way there.
I think if I was to give a best bet of the kind of players that we're talking about here, I would say Ryan Fox for a top 40 is really intriguing to me. Maybe even top 30. I think he's got that upside. I think that's probably the way to play. And I think Jesper Svensson is really appealing odds. We just don't have. I can't sit here and say to you, this is why you should do it, because we don't have that basis other than perfect skill set. And as you said, we had it with Alejandro Del Rey, where he started great, unfortunately just faded away. But.
Yep, 100%. Okay, I think they put the bow on it, right? 20, 25 minutes on our favorite golfers that we're diving into, those that we're separating ourselves from the field in GPPs or finding props. For those that want to find us on the podcast platforms, Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix, available on all Mayo Media networks. Really appreciate the support, the love. We wanted to make sure we provided a little extra on a major week as the DP World Tour is now going to really hit its stride again as summer is getting here, and you'll be finding Tom and I frequently every Monday for our podcast here for it. So Tom, thank you as always. Appreciate you, and best of luck to everybody at the PGA Championship.
Have a good week, guys.